Game start. e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, e6, f3, a6, c3, b5, bishop b3, c4, bishop c2, e5, d4, d6, d takes e5, d takes e5, queen takes d8 check, king takes d8, knight takes e5, knight takes e5, short castle, bishop c5, bishop f4, knight d3, rook d1, knight f6, bishop g5, king e7, e5, knight takes b2, e takes f6 check, g takes f6, rook e1 check, king f8, bishop takes f6, rook d8, rook a2, knight d3, bishop takes d3, c takes d3, rook d2, bishop f5, rook e5, bishop e6, rook takes c5, rook d8, bishop takes d8, king g7, bishop h4, king h8, bishop f6 check, black resigned, white is victorious. Game start. e4, d5, e takes d5, knight f6, knight c3, knight takes d5, knight takes d5, queen takes d5, knight f3, bishop g4, bishop e2, knight c6, short castle, long castle, d3, h5, knight h4, g5, knight f3, knight e5, knight takes g5, f6, f3, f takes g5, f takes g4, h takes g4, bishop takes g5, bishop h6, Bishop takes h6. Rook takes h6. Bishop takes g4 check. King b8. Bishop f3. Queen d4 check. King h1. Rook dh8. h3. Queen f4. Bishop takes b7. Queen g3. Rook f3. Rook takes h3 check. King g1. Rook h1 checkmate. Checkmate. Black is victorious. Game start. e4. c5. Knight f3. Knight c6. b3. d6. c4. Knight f6. Knight c3. Queen f5. Bishop e2. Bishop g4. Bishop e2. e6. Short castle. Bishop e7. h3. Bishop h5. d4. C takes d4. Knight takes d4. Bishop takes e2. Knight d takes e2. Queen g5. Knight b5. Short castle. Knight takes d6. Bishop takes d6. Queen takes d6. Knight takes e4. Queen d3. Knight c5. Queen c3. Rook d8. Queen takes g7 check. Queen takes d7. Bishop takes g7. King takes g7. Knight g3. Rook d2. Rook d1. Rook fd8. White resigned. Black is victorious. Game start. e4, e6, bishop c4, d5, e takes d5, e takes d5, bishop e3, knight f6, d3, bishop c5, bishop g5, knight c6, knight f3, bishop e7, short castle, bishop g4, h3, bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, queen d6, c3, long castle, knight a3, knight e5, queen e3, h6, bishop f4, knight fd7, d4, bishop g5, d takes e5, bishop takes f4, queen takes f4, knight takes e5, knight b5, queen b6, knight takes a7 check, queen takes a7, queen takes e5, rook he8, queen takes d7, rook d8, queen takes f7, queen b6, bishop takes d5, rook d5, queen e6 check, king b8, queen takes b6. Black resigned. White is victorious. Game start. e4, d5, e takes d5, knight f6, c4, e6, d4, e takes d5, knight c3, d takes c4, bishop takes c4, bishop e4, knight e2, short castle, knight c6, bishop e3, bishop e6, bishop e3, knight d5, knight takes d5, bishop takes d5, bishop takes d5, queen takes d5, f3, bishop d6, knight c3, queen h5, queen takes h5, black resigned. White is victorious. Game start. e4, e5, bishop c4, knight c6, queen f3, knight f6, queen b3, queen e7, knight c3, knight d4, Queen f4, a6, knight d5, knight takes d5, bishop takes d5, b5, queen f5, rook b8, bishop b3, queen c5, c3, knight takes b3, a takes b3, bishop e7, d3, d5, bishop e3, queen d6, e takes d5, bishop takes d5, knight f3, bishop takes b3, d4, e takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop d5, short castle, queen g6, f3, queen d3, rook fe1, bishop e7, queen takes a6, short castle, rook d1, queen g6, queen a7, rook b7, queen a5, b4, queen takes d5, rook fb8, knight c6, rook e8, queen d7, f6, knight takes e7 check, rook takes e7, queen takes e7, queen c2, rook d8 checkmate, checkmate, white is victorious. Game start. e4, e5, d3, bishop c5, knight c3, Queen f6. Bishop e3. Bishop takes e3. F takes e3. c6. Knight d5. C takes d5. Bishop e2. Knight e7. Knight h3. d6. Rook f1. Queen h4 check. Knight f2. Bishop e6. g3. Queen takes h2. King d2. Queen takes g3. Rook d1. Queen takes f2. Rook takes g7. Knight g6. Queen h1. Queen h4. Rook takes g6. Queen takes h1. Rook takes e6 check. F takes e6. Rook takes h1. Knight c6. Bishop h5 check. King e7. Rook f1. Rook f8. Rook d1. Rook hg8. Rook d7 check. Rook takes g7. White resigned. Black is victorious. Game start. e4. e6. Bishop c4. d5. E takes d5. E takes d5. Bishop e3. Knight f6. d4. Bishop d6. Bishop g5. Short castle. Knight f3. c6. Short castle. Bishop g4. Knight bd2. Queen c7. h3. Bishop h5. Bishop takes f6. G takes f6. g4. Bishop d6. Knight h4. Knight d7. Queen f3. Rook f8. Rook e1. Bishop f4. Knight b1. Bishop e4. Queen d1. Bishop h2 checkmate. Checkmate. Black is victorious. Game start. e4. e6. Bishop c4. d5. E takes d5. E takes d5. Bishop e3. h6. Queen f3. Knight e7. Knight c3. g6. Knight takes d5. Knight takes d5. Bishop takes d5. Queen e7 check. Knight e2. Bishop g7. Bishop takes b7. Bishop takes b7. Queen takes b7. Short castle. Queen takes 8. c6. d3. Queen c7. Bishop e3. c5. Queen f3. Knight c6. Bishop takes c5. Rook e8. Bishop e3. Knight d4. Long castle. Queen takes c2 checkmate. Checkmate. Black is victorious. Game start. e4. e5. Knight c3. Bishop c5. Knight f3. d6. d3. Bishop g4. Bishop e3. Bishop b6. Bishop e2. Knight f6. Bishop takes b6. Takes b6. Queen d2. Queen d7. f3. Knight c6. Short castle. Short castle. Knight g5. h6. Bishop takes g4. Queen takes g4. Knight h3. Knight d4. f4. Knight h5. f5. g6. Rook e1. g5. Knight d5. c6. Knight e3. Queen h4. c3. Knight b5. Queen e2. Knight f4. Knight takes f4. E takes f4. Knight g4. d5. e5. d4. Rook f3. Queen takes g4. c4. Knight c7. e6. Queen takes f5. E takes f7 check. Rook takes f7. Rook h3. Queen f6. Queen g4. Rook e8. Rook takes e8 check. Knight takes e8. Queen c8. Queen e7. Rook f3. Queen e1 check. Rook f1. Queen e3 check. King h1. Queen takes d3. Queen takes e8 check. King g7. Queen e5 check. King g6. Rook e1. Queen e3. Rook takes e3. F takes e3. Queen takes d4. Rook f1 checkmate. Checkmate. Black is victorious. Game start. e4. e5. Knight f3. Knight c6. Bishop c4. h6. Knight c3. Knight f6. d4. E takes d4. e5. Knight h7. Knight takes d4. Bishop e7. Short castle. Short castle. Knight takes c6. D takes c6. Queen takes d8. Rook takes d8. Bishop e3. Bishop g5. f4. Bishop e7. Rook fd1. Bishop f5. Bishop e3. King f8. h3. g5. g4. G takes f4. Bishop takes f4. Rook takes d1 check. Rook takes d1. Bishop e6. Bishop takes h6 check. King e8. Knight e4. Bishop takes b3. Takes b3. Knight f8. Knight f6 check. Bishop takes f6. Bishop takes f8. Bishop takes e5. Bishop h6. f6. c3. Rook d8. Rook e1. Rook d2. Bishop takes d2. Black resigned. White is victorious. Game start. c4. c5. Knight f3. Knight c6. g3. g6. Bishop g2. Bishop g7. e3. d6. Short castle. Bishop g4. h3. Queen d7. H takes g4. Queen takes g4. d4. h5. d takes c5. d takes c5. Knight fd2. Queen g5. Knight e4. Queen e5. f4. Queen c7. Knight takes c5. Rook d8. Queen b3. b6. Knight a6. Queen c8. Queen b5. Rook d6. e4. King f8. e5. Rook e6. Bishop d5. h4. Bishop takes e6. Queen takes e6. Knight c7. Queen h3. Queen takes c6. Queen takes g3 check. Queen g2. Queen d3, e6, h3, Queen d2, h2 check, King h1, Queen takes f1 checkmate, checkmate, Black is victorious. Game start. e4, e5, Knight f3, Knight c6, Knight c3, Knight f6, Knight takes e5, Knight takes e5, d4, Knight g6, e5, Knight g8, Bishop c4, c6, Queen f3, f6, short castle, d5, e takes d6, Bishop takes d6, Rook e1 check, Knight 8, e7, Knight e4, Bishop c7, Knight takes f6 check, G takes f6, Queen takes f6, Rook f8, Queen g7, Queen d6, g3, Bishop h3, Queen takes h7, Rook h8, Queen f7 check, King d8, Bishop g5, Rook e8, Rook takes e7, Knight takes e7, Rook e1, King d7, c3, Queen g6, Bishop e6 check, Bishop takes e6, Queen takes d6. Knight takes g6. Bishop e3. Bishop h3. f4. Rook e4. King f2. Rook e8. Bishop d2. Rook takes e1. Bishop takes e1. Rook takes e1. King takes e1. King e6. King f2. King f5. King e3. King g4. King f2. Knight e7. c4. Knight f5. b3. Knight takes d4. King e3. Knight f3. King f2. Knight takes h2. King e3. Knight f3. King e4. King takes g3. f5. Knight g5 check. King d4. Bishop takes f5. White resigned. Black is victorious. Game start. e4. e5. Knight f3. Knight c6. Bishop c4. d6. h3. Bishop e6. Bishop e3. Knight f6. d3. Bishop e7. Short castle. Short castle. Knight h2. f5. f4. Knight d4. f4. c5. f5. Bishop takes b3. C takes b3. Queen b6. Knight d2. c4. B takes c4. Knight e2 check. King h1. Knight g3 checkmate. Checkmate. Black is victorious. Game start. e3. d5. Knight e2. c5. Knight g3. Knight c6. Bishop e2. Knight f6. Short castle. e6. d3. b6. Knight d2. Bishop e7. f3. Bishop d6. b3. f5. c4. Short castle. e4. d4. f4. e5. f5. Bishop a6. h3. b5. f4. B takes c4. Knight takes c4. Knight b4. Bishop g5. h6. Bishop h4. Bishop e7. Knight takes e5. Queen c7. Knight c4. g5. F takes g6. F takes g6. e5. g5. E takes f6. Bishop takes f6. Knight e4. G takes h4. Knight takes f6 check. King g7. Knight g4. Rook takes f1 check. Queen takes f1. Rook f8. Bishop f3. Knight c2. Rook a2. Bishop takes c4. B takes c4. Knight b4. Rook f2. Queen g3. Bishop e4. Rook takes f2. Queen takes f2. Queen takes f2 check. King takes f2. Knight c2. Knight e5. King f6. Knight d7 check. King e7. Knight takes c5. Knight b4. Knight b7. Knight a2. Knight takes a5. Knight c3. Knight c6 check. King d6. Knight takes d4. Knight takes a4. Knight f5 check. King e5. Knight takes h4. Knight c5. Knight f3 check. King f4. Knight d4. Knight takes e4 check. D takes e4. King takes e4. Knight e6. King e5. Knight c7. King d6. Knight b5 check. King c5. Knight c3. King d4. Knight e2 check. King takes c4. King g3. King d5. King g4. King e6. Knight f4 check. King f7. King h5. King g7. g4. King h7. h4. King g7. Knight e6 check. King h7. g5. H takes g5. H takes g5. King g8. King h6. King h8. g6. King g8. Knight f4. Game start. e4. e5. Knight f3. Knight c6. Bishop c4. Knight f6. Knight g5. d5. E takes d5. Knight a5. Bishop e5 check. c6. D takes c6. B takes c6. Queen f3. e4. Knight takes e4. Bishop e7. Short castle. Short castle. Bishop d3. Bishop g4. Queen g3. Queen d7. Knight bc3. c5. Knight takes f6 check. Bishop takes f6. Knight e4. Bishop d4. King h1. c4. Knight f6 check. Bishop takes f6. Bishop e4. Rook at d8. f3. Bishop e6. d3. c3. f4. C takes b2. Bishop takes b2. Bishop takes b2. Queen h4. g6. Rook at b1. Bishop g7. f5. Bishop takes a2. F takes g6. F takes g6. Rook b1. Rook takes f1 check. Rook takes f1. Rook f8. Rook e1. Knight c6. c4. Knight d4. Bishop d5 check. King h8. Rook e7. Rook f1 checkmate. Checkmate. Game start. e4. e5. Knight c3. Knight c6. Knight f3. Knight f6. Bishop c4. Bishop e4. d3. Short castle. Bishop d2. d6. Knight d5. Bishop e6. Bishop takes b4. Knight takes b4. Knight takes b4. c5. Bishop takes e6. C takes b4. Bishop b3. f5. Bishop a4. Queen c7. Short castle. Queen c5. c4. h6. Bishop c2. Rook fc8. b3. b5. Rook c1. b takes c4, d takes c4, g5, h3, queen c6, queen e2, knight h5, g3, queen d7, king g2, g4, h takes g4, queen takes g4, bishop d1, knight f4 check, king g1, knight takes e2 check, bishop takes e2, queen takes e4, rook fe1, f6, king g2, king f7, bishop f1, queen h7, rook cd1, rook d8, knight h4, rook a7, rook d5, king e6, rook ed1, f5, bishop d3, e4, bishop f1, rook f7, c5, f4, c takes d6, f takes g3, f takes g3, e3, bishop c4, rook f2 check, king h3, king d7, rook e1, queen c2, rook takes e3, rook h2 check, king g4, rook d8 check, king f4, queen f2 check, rook f3, queen d2 check, rook e3, queen f2 check, rook f3, rook f8 check, king g4, rook takes f3, knight takes f3, rook d2, rook d2, queen takes g3 check, king f5, queen g6 check, king e5, rook d4, knight g5, rook e4 check, king d5, black timeout, white is victorious. Game start. e4. c5. Bishop c4. e6. Queen h5. Knight f6. Queen f3. Knight c6. c3. Knight e5. Queen e2. Knight takes c4. Queen takes c4. Bishop e7. Knight e2. Short castle. Short castle. a6. f4. b5. Queen d3. c4. Queen e3. Queen c7. d4. c takes d3. Queen takes d3. Bishop e7. Knight d4. Bishop c5. e5. Bishop e4. Queen e3. Bishop takes d4. C takes d4. Bishop takes b1. E takes f6. Bishop d6. F takes g7. King takes g7. h4. h5. Queen e5 check. Queen takes e5. F takes e5. Rook c8. Bishop g5. Rook c2. Bishop f6 check. King h7. Rook f2. Rook takes f2. King takes f2. Rook c8. Rook e1. Rook c2 check. Rook e2. Rook c4. King e3. Bishop f5. Bishop e7. Bishop g4. Rook f2. Bishop f5. Bishop c5. Rook c1. b4. Rook c3 check. King f4. Rook d3. King g5. Bishop d6. King f6. Rook d3. King e7. Rook d4. King takes d7. Rook takes h4. King c6. Bishop e4 check. King b6. Rook d4. Rook takes f7 check. King g6. Rook f2. Rook takes g2. Rook takes g2 check. Bishop takes g2. King takes a6. h4. King takes b5. h3. d5. Bishop takes d5. Bishop e1. King f5. a4. King takes e5. King c5. king e4, b5, e5, f5. Bishop 8, b6, king d3, a6, e4, b7, e3, b takes 8 promotes to queen, e2, queen f3 check, king d2, bishop f2. Black resigned. White is victorious. Game start. e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, c3, d5, e takes d5, queen takes d5, bishop b5, a6, bishop a4, b5, bishop c2, knight f6, short castle, bishop g4, h3, bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, queen takes f3, g takes f3, e6, d3, knight e5, d4, knight takes f3 check, king g2, knight h4 check, king g3, knight g6, d takes c5, bishop takes c5, bishop e3, bishop takes e3, f takes e3, short castle, knight d2, rook d8, knight e4, knight takes e4 check, bishop takes e4, rook d2, b3, rook fd8, rook f2, f5, bishop e7, rook takes f2, king takes f2, f5, king f3, knight e5 check, king f4, knight d3 check, king f3, e5, e4, f4, rook d1, rook d7, bishop d5 check, king f8, rook takes d3, g5, c4, b takes c4, bishop takes c4, rook c7, rook d5, rook e7, rook takes a5, h5, a4, king g7, rook a6, rook b7, a5, g4 check, h takes g4, h takes g4 check, king takes g4, black resigned, white is victorious. Game start. e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6, bishop c4, d5, e takes d5, e4, queen e2, Bishop g4. h3. Bishop takes f3. G takes f3. Queen e7. Knight c3. E takes f3. Queen takes e7 check. Bishop takes e7. d3. Knight bd7. Bishop g5. Long castle. Long castle. Knight b6. d6. Knight takes c4. D takes e7. Black resigned. White is victorious. Game start. d4. d5. Bishop f4. Bishop f5. Knight f3. Knight f6. e3. e6. c4. c5. Knight c3. Knight bd7. C takes d5. Knight takes d5. Knight takes d5. E takes d5. D takes c5. Knight takes c5. Bishop e2. Bishop e7. Short castle. Short castle. Knight d4. Bishop d6. Rook c1. Queen b6. b3. Rook c8. Knight f3. Knight e4. Queen takes d5. Rook takes c1. Rook takes c1. Rook d8. Queen c4. h6. Knight e5. knight d2, queen b5, queen takes b5, bishop takes b5, a6, bishop e2, bishop h7, h3, g5, bishop h2, f5, knight c4, knight e4, knight e5, bishop d6, knight d3, bishop takes h2 check, king takes h2, f4, e takes f4, g takes f4, f3, knight f2, knight takes f2, rook d2, bishop c4 check, king f8, knight d3, bishop takes d3, bishop takes d3, rook takes d3, rook c7, king e8, rook takes b7, rook d2, rook a7, rook takes a2, rook a8 check, king e7, rook h8, king f7, rook takes h6, rook a3, rook b6, f5, h4, king g7, king h3, rook a2, king g4, rook takes g2 check. Game start. e4, d5, e takes d5, knight f6, c4, e6, d takes e6, bishop takes e6, knight f3, knight c6, knight c3, bishop b4, bishop e2, short castle, rook e8, f3, bishop takes c3, b takes c3, bishop g4, d4, rook e7, bishop e3, knight e4, queen d3, bishop f5, knight h4, queen d7, knight takes f5, queen takes f5, f3, knight d6, queen d2, rook e8, bishop d3, Queen h5. Bishop f4. Knight a5. c5. Knight f5. Queen c2. Knight e3. Bishop takes e3. Rook takes e3. Rook at d1. b6. Bishop e4. f5. Bishop takes f5. Rook e2. Queen b1. Queen g5. Bishop h3. Knight c4. Queen b3. b5. Queen takes b5. Rook e7. Queen takes c4 check. King h8. Black resigned. Game start. e4. e5. Bishop c4. Knight f6. Knight f3. Knight c6. Knight g5. d5. E takes d5. Knight a5. Bishop e5 check. c6. D takes c6. Knight takes c6. Bishop c4. Bishop e6. Knight takes e6. F takes e6. Bishop takes e6. Queen d6. Bishop e3. Queen c5. Short castle. Bishop d6. d3. Long castle. Bishop e3. Queen b5. Knight c3. Knight d4. Knight takes b5. Black resigned. White is victorious. Game start. d4. d5. Knight c3. Knight f6. Bishop f4. Bishop f5. f3. e6. g4. Bishop d4. h5. g5. Knight fd7. e3. Knight c6. Bishop d3. Queen b8. Bishop takes g6. F takes g6. Queen d3. King f7. Knight b5. Bishop d6. Bishop takes d6. C takes d6. Knight h3. Rook f8. f4. e5. D takes e5. D takes e5. Queen takes d5 check. King e8. Knight d6 check. King e7. F takes e5. Knight c takes e5. Long castle. Queen c7. Knight f4. Rook c8. c3. Rook c d8. Queen e6 checkmate. Checkmate. White is victorious. Game start. e4. c5. Bishop c4. g6. Queen f3. e6. c3. Bishop g7. Knight e2. Knight c6. Short castle. Knight e5. Queen f4. Knight takes c4. Game start. e4. e5. Bishop c4. Knight c6. Knight f3. Bishop c5. d3. h6. Bishop e3. Bishop takes e3. F takes e3. Knight g7. Short castle. d6. Bishop takes f7 check. King takes f7. Knight takes e5 check. King g8. Knight g6. Knight takes g6. Queen h5. Queen g5. Queen f3. Bishop g4. Queen f7 check. King h7. h4. Queen takes e3 check. King h1. Rook at f8. White resigned. Game start. d4, d5, knight f3, knight c6, b3, bishop f5, bishop e2, knight b4, knight a3, e6, bishop c3, knight d3 check. C takes d3, bishop takes a3, e4, bishop d6, queen c2, knight f6, e5, knight d7, h3, short castle, bishop e2, f6, e takes f6, knight takes f6, rook d1, c6, short castle, b5, bishop a1, rook c8, bishop e2, bishop e7, rook c1, f5, knight e5, bishop e8, queen d2, bishop b4, bishop c3, bishop takes c3, queen takes c3, b4, queen b2, queen d6, rook c2, knight d7, f4, knight f6, rook fc1, knight h5, bishop takes h5, bishop takes h5, rook takes c6, rook takes c6, rook takes c6, queen e7, g3, g5, queen g2, g takes f4, g takes f4 check, king h8, king h1, rook d8, Queen f2. Queen f6. Rook c7. Queen f5. King h2. Bishop d6. Queen h4. Rook f8. Knight takes d6 check. Queen takes d6. Queen g4. Queen takes g4. H takes g4. Rook takes f4. King g3. Rook takes d4. Rook e7. Rook takes d3 check. King f4. Rook d4 check. King g5. Rook e4. Rook a7. d4. Rook takes a5. d3. White timeout. Black is victorious. Game start. d4. d5. c4. c6. Knight c3. Knight f6. Knight f3. Bishop f5. Bishop g5. e6. e3. Bishop e7. Queen b3. Queen c7. Rook c1. h6. Bishop takes f6. Bishop takes f6. C takes d5. C takes d5. Bishop e5 check. Knight c6. Bishop takes c6 check. B takes c6. Short castle. Short castle. Rook fe1. Rook fc8. e4. D takes e4. Knight takes e4. Bishop e7. Knight d3. Bishop d6. Knight e5. Queen d6. Knight takes g6. F takes g6. Rook takes e6. Queen takes d4. Rook d6 check. Black resigned. White is victorious. Game start. e4. e5, bishop c4, knight f6, knight f3, d5, e takes d5, knight takes d5, knight takes e5, queen d6, queen e2, bishop e7, short castle, short castle, d4, knight f4, bishop takes f4, c6, g3, queen takes d4, c3, queen c5, knight d2, b5, bishop b3, knight d7, knight e4, queen b6, bishop e3, queen c7, knight f3, knight e5, bishop f4, knight takes f3 check, queen takes f3, queen b6, rook fd1, c5, bishop c2, bishop e7, queen g4, bishop c8, queen f3, bishop e7, queen e3, b4, c4, rook at e8, b3, bishop f6, knight takes f6 check, g takes f6, queen d3, rook d8, queen takes h7 checkmate, checkmate, game start, e4, e5, f4, d5, e takes d5, e takes f4, knight f3, bishop e7, knight c3, bishop h4 check, g3, f takes g3, knight takes h4, queen takes h4, Queen e2 check. Knight e7. d6. G takes h2 check. King d1. Bishop g4. Rook takes h2. Bishop takes e2 check. Rook takes e2. C takes d6. Knight d5. Knight c6. White resigned. Black is victorious. Game start. e4. e5. Knight f3. Knight c6. d4. E takes d4. Knight takes d4. Knight takes d4. Queen takes d4. d6. Knight c3. Knight f6. Bishop e3. Bishop e7. f3. Short castle. Long castle. Bishop e6. King b1. c5. Queen d2. a6. g4. b5. h4. b4. Knight d5. Knight takes d5. E takes d5. Bishop d7. Bishop c4. a5. g5. a4. h5. b3. C takes b3. A takes b3. Bishop takes b3. Bishop a4. g6. F takes g6. H takes g6. Bishop takes b3. G takes h7 check. King h8. A takes b3. Bishop f6. King c2. Rook a2. Rook b1. Queen d7. Bishop g5. Queen f5 check. White resigned. Black is victorious.